For this very special episode of Back to the City, I'm honoured to be joined by Julius Collins. Thank you for coming into the studio.
Pleasure to be here, Simon.
And right now, the theme song as such for today's episode is I Cant Wait by Greazy Meal. A lyric that seems to have like a new significance to me from that song. Reality, a key word for David Bowie. One of his final records is called Reality, of course. Reality takes its hold, man, and I'm here to say that it bends and breaks you until your dying day.
I remember the day I wrote those lyrics. As it turns out, I was on my way to Brian's house, who's a saxophonist, and I was hit by a car on my bike on the way over there, so it was just, we didn't know what we were writing until I got hit, and then we knew what we were writing about. But
on the way to write those...
On the way to his house, we were just doing a kind of a writing exercise. That's kind of what he and I did a lot. All of this takes on tremendous significance in a lot of ways, but that, for me, was the essence of Greazy Meal, without a doubt. I just on a personal level, it came unexpectedly at a time in my life where I just really wasn't sure what I was or what I was about. And where I was going.
That ethos came unexpectedly. So through this experience of the...
Yeah, I'd like to say it was born out of some creative mastery. I think more than anything, it was born out of mortality.
Yes.
And the idea of it, and thinking about myself as a creative and whether or not I was done with that part of my life, right? And now that band did not start with the idea that we were going to be creative, except for there was a really fearless nature to the way we selected the cover songs that we were playing. Even.
Yes.
I mean, the anticipation was that no one would give a crap, and that we'd have 4 fun weeks of frolicking around each other because we loved each other and we loved playing music together, and that was the idea of it initially. And then so when it was time to, in that 4-week spell, we were playing to a really nice house. And we thought, wow, maybe we should continue, and we did. And a year later, we were thinking, now we're playing to a full house, maybe we owe it to them to give them some of our own ideas about music. And that was, at least for me, the genesis, the impetus for the whole thing.
How far into the process was this particular song?
This was one of the first songs on our first record.
Yeah.
So it was very early in the process.
Yeah.
But for me, again, I think it wasn't a coincidence that I got hit, and it wasn't a coincidence that the notion was born out of that. I just think it was kind of a confluence of things, and for me, I was conscious in those moments of just how precious that time was in our lives.
Yes.
In my life, and so that for me was the general idea of Greazy Meal. We're going to just, every show, we're just going to press it all the way to the limit. And honestly, I would feel like I'd feel awful for a couple of days after those shows, at least for the first couple of years, but then how to deal with it, I think. But honestly, I really wanted to have it on empty when we were done. We wanted to do everything possible. So I admire artists who have that kind of innate ability to drive that out of music.
Yeah. You were one of those.
I try to be.
You succeed. You're one of those, and it's difficult, but I wanted to begin with a sincere thank you on behalf of the Twin Cities for what you've done since 2016 for 3 other artists of that nature, of course, for Brian, but for Prince and for Bowie as well. The shows that you've been doing to honor the lives and that ethos of all 3 of those artists are so important, I think. So thank you for that.
Frankly, I feel, a great deal of gratitude being in those situations. The Brian situation was obviously just far more present for me.
Of course.
But all of this was educational for me, and I feel like I'm a better artist. I feel fortified as a result of having done those things, but none of it was intentional. All of it was coincidental. When Bowie died, I was starting a new business.
Collins Live
with Misha Bartlett, and we were trying to figure out a mission statement or an idea about how we wanted to proceed. And then Bowie died, and we decided that we'd kind of join her army of fashion, glamorous, ideaed people with my army of like brilliant musicians and musical minds, and we'd like smash it up, and it would make what Bowie was about. He
Absolutely.
was so three-dimensional in that way, right? And so we thought there will always be tribute shows, and frankly, sometimes people want to go the next step and dress up, but there's more even there than that. And I think when you start listening to the music, I shouldn't say when I started really listening to the music and trying to figure out what kind of show I wanted to offer, I feel like at times I was completely transported. I was completely humbled, and this, I knew about Prince. I knew Prince's music. I was, when I first moved to Michael Bland,
you were in a band
managed by Paisley Management, Prince, and so.
What was the name of that?
It was called Black Julius.
Yes.
And so I kind of had an idea about how its genius worked. Bowie for me was sort of working from the ground floor up and understanding, and I wanted it to be that way. So it was a privilege to do those shows.
Yeah. You already have the Collins Live project that you're going to start with Misha, and then the intersection of music and fashion is Bowie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He's got a song called Fashion. And honestly, in many ways, Prince was like that. And
of course.
So, for Bowie, it was like, first of all, I'm no thin white duke. So you take this to the theater, it immediately becomes nothing. Sometimes when you do tribute shows, people feel like they need to be literal. And I get it. So it was a little bit of a risk for me personally as an artist, because I wasn't looking to misrepresent him as much as I was looking to kind of show his impact on me, right?
Yeah.
And so that is what that was about for me. I'm glad it read in the fashion that it did. But that was the way that I thought about it.
When I was looking back over the history of Greazy Meal in preparation for the interview, and of course the main thing we're talking about today is the upcoming Bowie tribute that you're doing at the Ordway.
Yes.
Yes. As I was,
it's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. The tribute that you did that we've been talking about last year was awesome. I've got some awesome photos, or people can judge whether the photos are awesome. But here are the photos that I happened to, capture last year.
I love it.
But as I was reviewing the history of Greazy Meal, a couple of affinities between Greazy Meal and Bowie struck me, and all the more, I became all the more aware of how right it is that you're doing this. So there was one particular quotation from the.
Look at you.
Yeah, man.
I'm squirming suddenly.
Pages and pages of notes. So from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. It's a very hot day.
No, I'm just. That's me being a nervous freak right there. Sorry about that. It's all good. I'm fine, honestly.
Yeah. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune, they highlighted what Greazy Meal were doing back in the late 90s. Was offering inspirational soul music in a comfortable and artistic atmosphere, crossing musical boundaries, racial lines, and generational gaps, with almost 1,000 people coming to the caboose every Sunday. Yeah. And this idea of crossing musical boundaries, racial lines, and generation gaps, that's something that Bowie's all about.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It was one of the things, frankly, that I learned more about through this process, is just how integral that was to his whole process.
What was it that struck? So when you were doing your research last year for the first Bowie tribute night, what was it that you came across that made you realize that?
Well, first of all, when you just look at kind of the evolution of his career, he was always reaching and exploring, right? And so I think right about the time he started working with Luther Vandross, you'd think that'd be the most, odd pairing. And especially if you see some of the footage from that, I think there was a documentary or something. If you see some of that, you can just see what a struggle it was, right? But here's what I saw when I watched that footage. I watched a completely egoless artist. How you manage that, I think it's got to be impossible if you're a genius.
Only you